If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that's a blow made.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing.
Stand up and take on the greed and corruption of the ruling class of this country.
The billionaire class has been taking everything, and the working class has been left scraping, paycheck to paycheck, just trying to survive.
The police department, the FBI, the CIA, those are gangs. You know what I mean? The correctional office. America is the biggest gang in the world.
A solidarity which fears not foreign invasion, because it is bringing all the workers to the point when they will say to their masters, go and do your own killing. We have done it long enough for you.
It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Guys, gals, and in-between pals, welcome to the Left 4 Dead podcast. I'm your host, Emma Embers, the Chaos Queen of Green Bay, with my co-hosts, the gayest straight guy, Dane Snudden, and our wunkle, the wokest uncle, James Harris. And we're joined by another very special guest today, my good friend Sean, he was the data director for the entire state of Wisconsin for Power to the Polls, and now he's doing awesome stuff on his own channel, which we'll plug.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It's fun being here.
Yes. Yeah, we like to start first off, just kind of learning a little bit more about our guest, kind of learning. We say what radicalized you, but as we've discussed many times on the show, that just means that you are an empathetic, caring person typically. So
to be clear, I was going to Carter rallies in a stroller. So from the beginning.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't. There was no move to the left in my family. Both my parents were hardcore Democrats. In fact, my earliest memories of my dad yelling were when the Cowboys were playing or Reagan was talking.
That's relatable.
On the television. Yeah. So that's where I come from. Very progressive. I always joke on my channel, I'm to the left of AOC. I've got you, all four of us have social camouflage. They never expect us, white dudes to be there. But we do exist. And there's quite a few of us, actually. I mean, I feel like the problem is the right is all that.
Right.
So yeah. But it's also social camouflage. I can walk into rooms. My team is predominantly African American that I work with, and as my team and I like to say, there are certain rooms that they can walk in that it would be better that I don't, and vice versa. Also, somebody's got to talk to the cops. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
To be fair though, like you hang around enough leftist groups, the test stops being are you left of AOC and it ends up being are you right of Mao?
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely to the right of Mao for sure. For one thing, I have a background in philosophy, so I've actually, read, So I understand the evolution of government and the fact that a democracy is closer to communism than anyone who says they're communist. Because there's certain economic and social constructs that have to happen before you can even be that.
Right.
Like, my favorite interview was a guy from China who talked about how he got into the Communist Party of China because it's good for business.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
No, it's not communism, then that's just state capitalism.
No, exactly. It's just totalitarian capitalism is what it is. And they're always talking about, China's cornered the market on all of these, refining stuff. I'm like, yeah, they also don't have any drinking water left because they polluted it all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason we exported all those dirty manufacturing processes to other countries because the EPA was like, you're not allowed to poison people anymore.
Right.
So anyway, so where I got my start was very young, of course, but then I went to college. So I grew up on Guam. For those of you that don't know where that is, there's that pointy part at the top of Australia. If you go directly north of that and go about halfway in from Vietnam and come across east, where those two lines cross is out in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific Ocean. I mean, to give you an idea, my high school was 35 miles from Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the ocean where that submarine went in the Marianas Trench.
Oh, wow.
35 miles from my high school.
Sick.
And then after high school, I was in debate and mock trial in high school.
Okay.
And I represented Guam 3 different times. Well, 5 different times. 2 of them internationally in debate and 3 of them here in the States. And then I went to college and I was in student government. And I used to get everyone in lots of trouble because I used to ask questions to the governor. And like, you know, just the so I always tell, so the politics I grew up in, you can't, yes, there were Democrat and Republican parties, but you got to think more Pepsi, Coke.
Okay. Yeah.
There wasn't an overwhelmingly huge difference between the two.
Oh, so kind of like right now.
No, there's a huge difference between Democrats and Republicans right now. I find there to be an enormous difference. But there it was more think almost mafia, you know, it's more family politics. So depending on which families you were running with, one had the franchise for the Pepsi, the other one had franchise for Coke. So at all the political events, you had to make sure you had the right soft drinks.
Yeah.
So it's like that. But no, but then I came to the States and started working here in 2005. And I worked my first city council race in Dallas, which led to multiple state house races. By 2007, I was the data director for Obama Dallas.
Oh, wow.
And I did that till, well, all the way through to 2008, where we coordinated 15 state house seats, couple congressionals, and of course the GOTV for the president. And we, fun fact about Dallas County, which is where I operated up mostly, but it was also Tarrant, Denton, and Collin, and all the way up to Texarkana, actually. The primary, if you went all the way back to 1977, I believe, only the Democratic primary only had 45,000 people that had ever really bothered to participate that were still on the rolls by 2007.
Wow.
By the March 3rd primary, sorry, March 4th, March 3rd, shit. The first Tuesday of March in 2008, that number had grown to 345,000.
Wow.
So
somebody got the word out.
Yeah.
What?
He said somebody got the word out.
Yeah, we knocked on 465,000 doors with volunteers, no paid canvas, which is the most I've ever done with a volunteer program. We knocked on 35,000 doors the Saturday before the March. It was March 4th, the Saturday before the March 4th primary, and that was the most I'd ever knocked with volunteers, and it still is, of course. But actually, in 2024 in Milwaukee, we fielded I know we had 113 vans, and I know we knocked on 50,000 doors.
Oh my God.
I've got photos and stuff. It's nuts. And we got them out in the field in 45 minutes, which in my opinion is probably as fast as you can do it.
Yeah, that's
probably the only time that's ever happened.
Oh no. Well, so it's interesting, and Emma can attest to this. For the first time ever, I
love talking about Green Bay.
In Wisconsin, yeah, we're talking about Green Bay. In Wisconsin history, Green Bay was knocking on doors before Milwaukee for the Supreme Court race that happened in April.
Wow.
Yeah,
that was a big
it's
race.
Too fucking cold, and we were like, I don't fucking care. We were
Dude, Green Bay people are built different.
Yeah.
Like, what's funny is like I'm from Texas and a tropical island on Guam. And the rest of my team's from basically Atlanta or East Texas. So we're all like, you guys want to go out? Okay. I mean,
it's shorts weather.
tell me about. Yeah, they'd anyway. Yeah, but
that's one thing about Green Bay that I've enjoyed is that like I'm back to being how I was in California, where I would wear shorts stupid early in the year, and people would be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And here, people are like, "No, that's cool."
Oh no, I remember driving through Green Bay, and there was a guy in a tank top and shorts and flip-flops on his back patio smoking cigarettes. It was 23 degrees.
Oh yeah, that's well, you get used to it. You know, the Wisconsin 4 seasons are almost winter, winter's still winter, and road construction.
Yeah, basically.
Well, so here's a fun fact about Milwaukee's data that we collected in 2024, because I was the data director for the state for that cycle and also for the Supreme Court race. So I got to see all the polling data that was coming in. And the thing I learned about Milwaukee is that if you can fix the potholes, you can be king of Milwaukee. You will be in office for as long as you want to be, and there is no one that can remove you ever. Because 70% of our respondents said when they go vote, they're thinking about infrastructure and potholes. And then it's healthcare and education. The other 30% is healthcare, education, democracy, whatever. But 70% was potholes.
I do love Green Bay, but I'm seeing the incentive for moving to Milwaukee.
You know, I get it. I get it though, because if you're running for office, like most of us have like these, you know, complicated ideologies, but at the end of the day, what really matters is, can you solve the problems of the people? Like your voting block, can you solve
Why
the
am I
problems?
buying tires every 6 months? And what's wrong with my suspension this time? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
you want
real
to fix
money.
affordability. How about fewer car troubles?
I mean, it's real money. I mean, for people who don't make a lot of money, car problems are game enders.
Oh yeah,
big time. And I
sure.
think that's what was manifesting in our data, which I think speaks to what the stuff we're hearing now, the whole Mamdani effect and everything, talking about affordability and the hidden costs of being poor. You know, it's more expensive to be poor than it is to be rich.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm really curious to kind of get a little bit more into the data. And one thing that I was going to kind of ask you about was kind of the difference between the Crawford election and then the presidential election. Because at least in the circles, I mean, I was at university at that time. I was actually helping like register and stuff like that for Crawford. And I think we were seeing, at least in university, so, you know, sample size is not super large. It seemed like a lot more people were motivated for that one than the president. And I think there's probably a lot of things like, you know, Wisconsin based, it's not national based. But yeah, what did you notice?
I'll start with Kamala's race. Never, 100% never has any race at that level, or honestly even congressional or Senate level, ever won coming in halfway through the cycle. Ever. So had she won, that would have been the outlier. Her losing is exactly what's supposed to happen, statistically speaking. So when people, and I get in a lot of trouble for this, but I'm like, I don't make up this math. Feel free, and God, if you can find me a race at the presidential level, much less U.S. Senate or congressional, where a candidate came in that wasn't on the ballot. I'm not talking about somebody who moved out and then, you know, the 2, 3, and 4s came in, you know. No. Top of the ballot, wasn't there before. Running for a seat, not running for before. Halfway through the cycle, it's never happened. No one's ever won. I mean, Emma will tell you, we were begging for yard signs. Couldn't get any because they couldn't print them fast enough and get them nationally distributed. There's a million things that go into getting a campaign like that off the ground. And my only real experience outside Kamala was Obama. And we started working on Obama on March 6th, 2007.
Oh, wow.
So by the time the election happened, we did 18 months. That's how you knock on 400,000 doors with volunteers in Dallas County. The largest field program ever in Dallas County's history. So that was the first big difference between the Supreme Court race and Kamala. Also, she was also, POC female, which is hard. I don't know if you've ever seen a demographic map of your lovely state, but
yeah, I have.
And yeah, I mean, I come from one of the most diverse states in the country. Sorry, we're so diverse in Texas. We're actually 60% majority minority in Texas. Yeah, Houston's one of the most diverse cities in the country, including New York and LA and everything. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, and Dallas too. Actually, we're but anyway, so you had that problem. Okay, so now let's look at the Supreme Court race. We've got white female, okay, and a race that had a beginning and an end. And there was a big hangover with the fact that Trump said he was going to be able to do a bunch of stuff in one day.
Yeah.
And none of that happened. And we were 100 days later.
Right.
And none of it was happening. And quite honestly, none of it still hasn't happened. We're almost 300 days. So I think there was a lot of Democrats didn't think Trump could win again because he was the worst president. He killed probably 1 million people during his administration with COVID and everything. And I mean, you can't be telling people to inject bleach into themselves or take whatever that horse medicine was.
Ivermectin.
Well, apparently you can.
Tell people
Low
that.
job of the microphone, and they're eating the pets. That those would be the things that he couldn't win over. But nope.
Right. No, apparently. And what it was I think the Democrats fell into the same trap. Well, okay, one thing, Kamala was never supposed to win.
No.
I mean, statistically speaking. Now, if anyone was going to win, it would have been against a candidate like Trump, right? But even that wasn't possible. So now we know you have to win. And I was upset, and I've met Biden more than a bunch of times, because he was the VP for Obama, and like I said, I was there for 18 months.
Yeah, right.
So I met Biden a bunch of times. I met Obama. I actually met Michelle more than those two, because Michelle used to come into Dallas quite a bit and talk to the girls' schools. And I was always on staff. So there was a point there where eventually I was just the one they sent when Michelle came in. So she's like my height. So there's a bunch of photos of us and all these group photos, which is a bunch of teachers and a bunch of little old lady retired people that were helping run the booth and stuff for the tickets and all the logistics. And then there's me and her in the back, because we're like 1.5 feet taller than all of them.
Yeah.
So, and she is the nicest person I've ever met. I mean, gracious and super smart. I mean, people, and then you hear all the Republicans say all that crap about her. You're just like, wow.
Oh my God.
They just sound dumber when they do that. But that was, I'd say, the biggest difference. The Supreme Court was the Kamala's race. How could she possibly lose? Only because she was going to. It was never, And then the Supreme Court race happened. Democrats are all butthurt because now they have an orange idiot in office, and then we got in there, and Emma will tell you, we got in there, and we actually. So there's different groups of voters that you can reach out to. There's that top 40% that are probably almost always going to vote. Then there's this middle group that, man, everyone's always trying to, those switch voters, that 31% to 60% likely to vote, and then there's that 0 to 30% universe. In the race that the field program, and actually on my channel, it's called the Green Bay Experiment. I did a whole show on it. And when I talk about how we targeted that bottom 30. heavily, and asked them to vote. And that's how, when Green Bay had that election, and Green Bay, by the way, was what changed the math. Normally that race is called around 11:30 or midnight. They called that race at 8:30 that evening, the Supreme Court race, because the math in Green Bay was so insane that they had a 16% increase, 16-point increase in turnout of unlikely voters. That doesn't happen by accident. You have to go ask those people to vote. For one thing, they don't even know election's happening because they got like 3 jobs and 4 kids and they're busy. But if you ask them to vote and then you remind them to vote, and you have a field program that's actually knocking on the doors, and my job is to actually audit. So for that race, I needed really, really, really sound data because we were experimenting with something, because nobody ever asked that bottom 30 to vote. And we were given specific permission to run that city the way my team and I wanted to, because we wanted to see what the effect of that would be. So we targeted that universe heavily, and which meant that I needed to audit my team to make sure they were, actually knocking on the doors. Because there's, in this game, you can, if you don't have GPS tracking of your canvassers, there's no way to really know if they're knocking on the doors, except I know a way to know, because I've knocked on about 1 million doors myself. So I know how I can look at a map, I can look at density, and I can tell you you're going to be at about 2.5 to 3.15 minutes per door. And if you're a variant of that, you better have a really high contact rate. And then when I audit that contact rate, we call those people, they better say they talk to you.
Yeah.
So, and the only way there, so to give you an idea, I was auditing the entire state, and we had 160 canvassers through the whole state. Each canvasser takes about 4 minutes to audit. My day started at 5 p.m. Actually, my day started at 6 in the morning, but that part of my job started about 6 p.m. when everyone was done canvassing. So 160 times 4. So I'm done around midnight if I really, really work hard.
Wow.
So that's my day, 6 a.m. to midnight.
Wow.
And
what do you think the Elon effect was in
awesome.
Wisconsin? That's what I was saying.
I was like, he can get involved in all of our elections.
Ebro was great. Ebro was awesome. I mean, keep it full disclosure, I'm a huge SpaceX fan.
Okay.
I'm a science nerd.
Yeah.
And like when he landed a rocket on its butt,
yeah,
that was the beginning of the space era for our people, for the human race. So I mean, the stuff he's done has been amazing, but that doesn't mean he's not a dick.
Right.
So, but also him handing out $1 million checks to known Republicans, specifically, I believe he was young Republican at University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, I think. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, he was the president of the organization. Never got paid either. They paid none of those checks.
Yeah.
So,
they came. I remember when they came to UWGB, and it was like the $100 to fight the woke justices or whatever. And the organization that I led on campus was like, I was the one day I wasn't there, and they were blowing up my phone. They were like, "This is here," like whatever. Nobody got paid. And not a surprise, I don't think, to anybody.
No, not at all. And so one thing about Green Bay, and I'm speaking as an outsider, but it's one thing I noticed when dealing with the wonderful people there, by the way. Even the MAGA people that we would randomly run into were just the nicest MAGA people I've ever met. They really just were the politest MAGA hardcore Republican people
you haven't
ever
met.
And I'm from Texas, so ours are a different breed down here. They're a little bit edgy.
I bet.
I mean, I'm not saying they're better armed, but probably. Anyway.
Yeah.
So nicest people. But even they were put off because Green Bay's a kind of a blue collar working person. So even the people who do have money are still driving a regular pickup. They don't, it's not flashy. There's nobody with, It's not like Dallas where we got douchebags with Lamborghinis driving. I mean, we don't. You guys don't have that. That's
Right.
not who the people of Wisconsin are. And I think that whole $1 million check to vote thing put off a lot of people, and then incited a whole bunch of other people. So not only did it shut down your voters on the right, it pushed out your voters on the left. And that's how you're able to call a race 4 hours earlier than normal.
That's crazy.
No, and it was even wilder being like in the Tarleton Theater was where we had the viewing party, because we were all like just getting like all of our
We're like,
shit,
all right,
like,
let's
for-
get our
for
first
dinner and-
drink.
and
Let's get
drinks and stuff like, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Hey, it's called," and we were like, "Wait, what? What do you mean?"
Well,
You
and
don't
that
call
was
it that early. What's happening?
Emma and I were a part of organizing when Musk was in Green Bay, like physically in Green Bay.
Almost started a street brawl to protect his mom. Actually,
Emma did do that. Yes.
no, you and I both, not just me. I don't want to be the only one starting street brawls in Green Bay.
That is your purpose.
We
Well,
mobilized over 1,000 people in 24 hours to come protest outside. Local people, and so I think that was like a huge, and it's telling that Wisconsin was the only place that they tried that stunt, and then
we literally like caused the divorce. Touchy subject. We caused the divorce between Elon and Trump.
And
Like
you
that was
did it.
us. Like I always, every time people are like, "Oh, they finally broke up," I'm like, "Yeah, you're fucking welcome."
You did that all without using any Soros paid protesters.
Excuse me, we had
No,
one
listen,
Soros
if
paid
let me-
protester, and that was
I want
me.
my first Soros check, and they've been saying I've been paid by Soros forever, and I've never been paid by that guy. Not
My
even by his
favorite-
PAC. I'm like very disappointed. I've been doing this longer than most.
Not even the dark money. Like my favorite part of it was that they tried to justify it by saying that like they tracked the geo data of every single person's phone that was there, and they were at all of the other Antifa protests. And I was like, well, that's funny, because the last protest I was at was the fucking Tea Party protest in California back in 2009. So I think you're fucking lying.
How are they getting all that data without a warrant?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
it's just
the thing that
lies,
they're working
but-
on right now anyway. But that's normal shit.
Yeah, no, we don't. I always laugh at how organized the Republicans think the Democrats are.
I wish.
Yeah, no, we were all like, even Ahmad was like, I do this for a living, and I'm stunned that there's this many people here.
I mean, the CRM that the Democratic Party uses nationally is effectively stopped evolving as of 2012. So it's 13 years in antique, and in software, that might as well be 1 million years.
Yeah, right.
You know, so I always laugh when they say, "Oh, you," I'm like, man. No,
Well,
I've worked with some pretty powerful organizations, and the stuff
Yeah.
they use is garbage.
Right, yeah.
Well, and it's also the aspect of like, we're always known for eating each other, and now we're like in this weird flipped position where it's like the right that's eating itself, and the left is like, yeah, the guy's got Nazi tattoos. I don't give a fuck. He wants to do the free healthcare thing, and it was like, yes.
I like to say something about Democrats eating each other. We don't. That's not an actual thing.
Well, that's fair.
You understand, like so did you know the average age of the Republican Party in office is younger than the Democratic Party?
Yep.
The reason is because of 2010, the Tea Party, when the Republicans ate each other, like to the bone.
Yeah.
And they replaced about a quarter of the representatives in Congress between 2010 and 2012. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've always used that as like my canon event of why we're in the mess that we're in a lot of ways, because it also hurt Wisconsin directly, in that's when all the redistricting stuff happened, because they also took between the Congress and the state legislatures, it was over 1,000 seats, if I recall correctly, and that was what let them. It was the exact perfect time for them to rewrite everything, so that way they would basically just control the House regardless of what we.
And let me tell you, the problem from 2008 to 2010 was a self-fulfilled prophecy by the Democratic Party, in my personal opinion. I remember in March of 09, I was reaching out to all the state house reps in Dallas County saying, hey guys, we just took seats that we should not have been able to take. We won places we should not have been able to win, but we need to get back out there and start knocking on doors. Keep in mind, I just finished coordinating the largest field program in Dallas County history. And I got nothing but, oh, we're real tired, or it's awfully early, and blah, 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 blah. They lost everything plus 3 state house seats in Dallas County after that in 2010. They're like, oh, well, they always come back. I'm like, no, you guys dropped the ball again. And we're right where we are because you guys decided not to start knocking on doors a year ago. That's the reason. Has nothing to do with the Republican Party, nothing to do with who's president or who won last time. I don't buy any of that. The party gets fat and stupid when they win. And we've seen the Republicans do it, and I've seen the Democrats do it. It's not a new thing. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the first party that figures that out will then be fatter and stupider as the next time they do it. And they'll forget again. So, yeah, I mean, I was literally there. I actually wrote a 41-page after-action report from the 08 cycle, talking about this is what has to be done and this is what needs to be done every year. Nobody read that. And
speaking of after action reports, we recently saw the autopsy come out that was written about the election. I'd be curious if you read that, what your thoughts were, because I know when Emma and James and I read it, we were like, oh, but we don't have all the statistical knowledge that you do about something like that.
So the reason the Democratic Party, and I'm saying our party, but I'm not assuming everyone here is Democrat. The reason the Democratic Party is in the position that it's in is because its average voter is probably 30. And its average age of its representative is probably twice that. The candidates that are under 50 do infinitely better than the ones that are above 50.
Yeah.
And the fact that, like, for example, and that's why I always tell candidates in Texas, the average age, do you guys know the average age of a Texan in Texas?
No.
Yeah, probably pretty young.
It's a millennial. Yeah, it's 35.
Oh. Huh.
And it's also mostly brown. So why isn't Texas blue?
I was going to ask that, actually, when we were talking
because
earlier.
our representatives don't reflect the community. And gerrymandering big time. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So with the new gerrymandering that they just did, so people of color make up about 60% of Texas. They have 20% of the representation. So we now have a 40-point gap.
Wow.
So Texas is by far the most gerrymandered state in the history of our country. And that's a bold statement because I've looked at North Carolina. In fact, right now I'm going through each state's primary. I think I'm in August at this point. I'm putting out one a day. So I'm looking at every one of these states' congressional seats only. Haven't even gone. I'm not doing state stuff because, oh my God. But just looking at the congressional stuff, and what I am seeing in a lot of the campaign finance reports, which are now a few months old because the next reporting is at the end of the year, and so we won't see that stuff till January. But there's a lot of Republican primaries that are going to be contested this cycle, and it means they're going to run them all to the right. They'll outright each other, and then there's a lot of Democrats raising money in some really interesting districts. And I think, like, for example, they're saying, oh, California, we're going to win 5 seats. I think it's 6. Your state, I think the first and the third are absolutely up for grabs. Those are 50-50, or 48-52. But I know for a fact if I got in there, I could pull both those seats. Put a decent field program in there.
You have a mission then.
No, they have to pay me a lot of money to go do that. So,
so let's see, that was first and third. So that's Steele and Van Orden. God, I fucking hope so. Like Steele, all of them, honestly, all of our Republicans suck. We have like probably the worst set of Republicans. Well, not the worst, because
I was gonna say
there are others, but yeah, like Van Orden in particular, and fuck, what's his name? Glenn Grothman. Grothman is like one of the most openly Nazi people in Congress, period. Like, fuck that guy. But I digress. Tony Weed. What do you think? Do you think he's beatable? I know it's like technically one of those ones that's drawn like way ridiculously out of
The only
but
two
also
that I would go after is
everybody
the
hates
first
him.
and the-
So
Yeah. The first and the third are the only two I would spend money in. So, I mean, to be honest, the rest of them are pretty hard gerrymandered. And there's been a lot of growth both on the western side of your state, enough in some of those cities that I think that there's enough density where a field program would make sense, and there's enough media, enough of a media buy would probably pull it. And also, not having Trump on the ballot gives you almost a 3-point bump right there. So that's where as far as Wisconsin goes, the first and the third is the game, and which is great. I mean, I think there's 2 seats in New York that can be taken. I found one in North Carolina before they redistricted that I thought was really smart, the 7th, but I got to go relook at all that now because they changed their maps.
that's probably partially why, because they were like, "Ooh, let's not."
Oh no, and I mean, there was this one congressional down there that the win number was like 15,000 votes. I get 15,000 votes sleeping for the field program. So I knew that seat was absolutely, and they still have a very good candidate running down there. But so what I'm doing is I'm going through all of these freaking states, and I'm about 2/3 of the way done. I got to get done before the finance reports come out, and then I'm going to go back through and pick the congressional states I want to talk about, and say these are the ones I think can be won. And in my opinion, in Wisconsin, the first and the third are absolutely worth going after, and I think they can win. In fact, I know they can, but they've got to start. They got to start knocking on doors as soon as possible, preferably. I mean, as long as the weather allows, so probably by February in your state, you should be able to do it. That way, the snow's only coming from the side every once in a while.
Yeah.
But you got to get out there and you got to start hitting the doors. And
I'm gonna get out your knocking shorts.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, you know what's cool about knocking is that once you get out there and you're doing it, you warm up. So
yeah. I was like, I would literally start my days even when it was literally snow and ice out, just like fully like done up and everything. And then by middle of the day, I'm like, my sweater and jackets are like wrapped around my waist like it's 1980 and I'm going to Disneyland with my mom or something. And yeah, I feel a lot better.
Yeah, no, it's a thing. Anyway, so that's my opinion on Wisconsin. You've got a Supreme Court race this April too.
Yep, we are in Supreme Court hell for the next few years.
You guys really are, and I'd love to come up there and work that one, but I haven't heard yet, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I am always in favor of you guys coming. We got to get Brad back too, like get the whole gang back.
Brad is doing great. Brad, for those of you who don't know, Bradley, Mad Brad, he is now working with the unions in the Midwest, and he's bouncing around solving all sorts of big problems. He is fully occupied. Yeah.
James, you had a question here?
More of a comment. So from what you said so far, I'm really getting the vibe that Wisconsin likes to pretend that we're way more diverse than we are, and Texas likes to pretend like it's way less.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys have diversity in like Racine and Milwaukee, but Green Bay is
like 75% white.
Is it that low?
I'll go look it up.
Yeah, look it up because
Yeah.
like
63% white.
Okay, well there you go. That's pretty good. Is that the county wide? That's not the city, or is that the county?
That's the city.
Okay. Yeah, I think once you bring in Appleton and a few other places,
Yeah,
you'll
because
yeah.
Appleton's also pretty white.
Oh,
Yeah.
actually, no. No, that was brown. Oh, no, that was 2020. Now we are in 2020. Green Bay was 63% white. In 2025, Green Bay is 69% white.
Oh, we got whiter. Oh wait, you know
Well,
what?
there
That
you-
makes sense because I moved here. I moved here in 2023. So there you
The
go.
statistical anomaly that is Emma.
Yep.
Well, Texas has the one city in the country that is actually, because your municipalities are your city municipalities are getting more diverse. Texas is the one of the fastest growing cities that's getting less diverse, and it's Austin.
Huh.
Interesting.
The African Americans are actually moving out of Austin.
Well, I think
it
must be proximity to Alex Jones.
Yeah.
It's proximity to insane rent. I mean, if you're going to pay rent like that, you should live in Seattle or someplace pretty, because the hill country in Austin's all right, but I mean, I'm not living anywhere where the margaritas are $12.
Honestly.
Amen to that, honestly. So I did have another question too, because I was very involved with and still am with the Palestine movement, the student movement, all of that stuff for Palestine. And one thing that we were getting a lot of flack for was for not. I mean, I voted for Kamala, but I had a lot of fellow organizer friends and stuff like that didn't. And I haven't really been able to see if there was a definitive answer as to whether or not that organizing. I think last that I heard, they said that it wasn't a statistically significant amount that didn't vote because of the Palestine
in parts
genocide,
of Michigan, it definitely was.
Okay, yeah, in like Dearborn
definitely
area,
parts
that
of
type
Michigan,
of thing.
it was definitely a factor. I think in Illinois, it definitely had an effect. But outside that, and a lot of it was just a bunch of BS. I mean, you can be pro-Palestinian and pro-Jew.
Right,
No
yeah.
problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And what it is they made it either or.
Mm-hmm.
That was their argument, which is a
sure.
BS argument. I'm an American, but there are many times I'm not happy with my American government.
Right.
That does not make me anti-American.
Right.
So I can be displeased with the Israeli government and still have. I mean, I've been to Passover. I love the Jewish faith.
Yeah,
in fact, I'm what you would classify as far to the left liberal Christian. I'm a Unitarian Universalist.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up doing Passover.
Okay, yeah.
And we call it the Jewish Testament and the Christian Testament, not the Old and the New, because old presumes bad, new is good.
Right.
We go Jewish Testament and Christian Testament because that's what they are.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I grew up like I said, I grew up crazy liberal, and so that whole argument to me was just a way for people to separate, divide, and conquer, and that's what they did, and they did it very, very efficiently.
And I guess I had another question too. I love having someone with this much election knowledge on. I've always been curious myself, and kind of with Zoran's victory and everything, how important would you say it is? What is the importance of having good policy versus good mobilization and a strong, door knocking plan? And I would think they're probably intertwined.
They are absolutely intertwined. And I'm not just saying this because I'm super pro door knocking.
Yeah.
So Mamdani, about 5-6 weeks ago, before he won, about 3 weeks before he won, was asked, what was the turning point? Because you went from 1% poll to winning.
Right.
And this was even before he won. He was polling 15 points ahead, of everybody. And they're like, what was the one thing that changed? What was the one thing you did that you think was the deciding factor? And he's like, we knocked on people's doors and asked them to vote.
Yeah.
It ain't complicated.
Right.
You know, they want to know what you stand for. They don't trust the media.
Mm-hmm.
They don't trust the internet. But I always tell candidates and volunteers and people who work their communities, the most powerful phrase you can say in politics, in my mind, is to knock on somebody's door and say, "Hello, I am your neighbor." And that "Hello, I am your neighbor" changes the dynamic of all information that follows that.
Mm-hmm. Makes
It's incredibly
sense.
important.
Speaking of that, I've kind of had a theory for the future of organizing, right? So if you were around for Obama, then like Obama was a revolutionary candidate in a couple of ways. One of them being that he was the first one to really, really harness the power of the internet, like so good that that's just the way things are done now. But I think we might have reached a kind of a shift where we've gotten to the point where everything on the internet is bullshit, even the stuff you agree with, except for this show, of course. But
in my channel, of course,
yes,
it's all math
yes.
based. It's all math based.
That's not the defense you think it is, because the saying, there's lies, damned lies, and statistics. But
you can look up my statistics yourself.
I'll just screw around. I don't need to throw any actual shit. But I feel like the future of organizing, I think it has to shift back to being something in person.
Oh, it absolutely does. Well, and I know this is a podcast, but I'm holding out my cell phone. This device, the smartphone came out, and we went from a contact rate of about 15% when we would reach out to people by phone to 6%. And went from 15 to 6 in 5 months.
Wow.
Within 5 months of the first Apple phone coming out, where they had the capacity to block numbers. And I remember in 2008, just a couple years later, if you were getting 4%, you were killing it. 4% contact rate. Now you have to dial about 300 numbers to get one contact. So now it's a third of 1%. So phones, which we used a lot in 08, aren't even a thing anymore. Mail died with e-bill. When people started getting their bills via the internet, via like electronic, notification, and you could pay online and stuff, people stopped checking their mail. We're certainly going through and reading everything, because very, very few documents are sent by mail, except maybe during tax season, which, by the way, isn't in November, so no one cares. And so the Brookings Institute did a really interesting research project. They looked at 2,000 campaigns. And in that research, mail being the most expensive thing you can do. I was in construction. I had a friend in construction. He said, "You're only spending money if you're moving dirt. You're moving dirt, you're spending real money, because that's expensive." In politics, you're not really spending money until you're putting postage on ink and paper. Because and what's really interesting is that when the Brookings Institute looked at the effect of mail on a campaign, it said that the ROI for every vote you get, you're going to spend about $150.
That's
and
higher than I
also
thought.
with an asterisk. Check this out. With an asterisk, it puts statistically irrelevant as far as the votes that you would get. Because the only people who are going to read your stuff are already going to vote for you. And that's the most expensive thing. So when I first started working in campaigns, a third to half of our budget was postage.
Wow.
Phones are garbage, right? So it's mail and phones are out. Email's a black hole. Email's not a communication device anymore. Email's a key that unlocks where their social media is.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
It's not how you communicate. It's the key that allows you to maybe communicate in different ways. So it's not it used to be the your address where you would get your information.
Yeah.
It's not at all like how it is anymore. In fact, it all goes into your spam folder and you immediately, erase spam folder. So email's dead. social media, like you said, especially with all the new fake stuff, and you can't even tell the difference. I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
And I'm in the business.
Right.
The new stuff that's going to be coming out in this cycle is 3 times better than the stuff that was out 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And it's not going to get in by 2028, 2032, 2036. Good luck.
Right.
So the internet's garbage. The only thing that's left, the only thing you can't AI or bot. Hello, I am your neighbor.
Right.
That's all that's left. Anyone who's selling something else is trying to make some money off you, and you're not going to have your ROI is going to be garbage. But the ROI on a door knock is about $20 to $25 per vote.
Wow.
The ROI on the next best thing is a volunteer-driven phone bank that's professionally managed, because it doesn't cost hardly anything. So your ROI is much better.
Yeah.
But it's still 2/3 more expensive than a field program. If you're talking about how much money you're spending per vote.
Wow.
Yeah. So yes, to answer your question, knocking on doors about all we got left. And also it's funny because that's where we started. Before there were phones, before there was anything, you went and they called them whistle stop tours, where these trains would pull up and these volunteers would go into the town, knock on all the doors, and then come back into the train would take off again. We're just doing that. That's all we're doing now. We're back to that. It's just now we have an app that controls the data and has a cool map and tells us where we're going.
The more things change.
Yeah, right.
Since I've got a hardcore statistic nerd here, I've got a couple of pet theories that I've just come up with based purely on vibes that I can run past you.
I love me a vibe theory.
Right. First one is that, well, fuck Biden for staying in it way too long. That's
I'm staying in the race.
That's clearly the thing.
And I'll be honest, it wasn't Biden, it was his people. They didn't want to let go of power. That's where that comes from. Biden should have known better. But when you got everyone around you going, "No, man, you should stay in. You're the best president we've ever had." Blah blah blah. It's hard not to.
Well, and
in his defense, better people around
him. Like his family were going in and going like, "No, look, it's great." So fucking Hunter.
Right. So okay, my first pet theory is if they ran some generic candidate who was both white and a man, they would have had imagine the exact same as Kamala's platform, but a white man. I think they would have had a fighting chance of winning the popular vote because it's like just over 1 million, if I remember correctly. So it's saying like 1 in 75 people could go, "No, I'm not going to vote for a woman. I'm not going to vote for a person of color." I think those numbers are very real. So they would have had a fighting shot of winning at least the popular vote.
That would have been well, you're right. The popular vote, maybe.
And then going off that, if you look at like a lot of European democracies, all the women who get high leadership positions pretty much invariably come from a center right or far right party. So I'm gonna make a wild prediction that the first female president of the United States is going to be a Republican, and I think that is because the kind of patriarchal system we have in place is less threatened by someone who supports it, even though it's a bit of cognitive dissonance.
I don't agree with that for a couple of reasons. One, never underestimate the male chauvinist river that runs through the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And it is a river. Two, Roe.
That's fair. I think
one word that said it all.
3, if Marjorie Taylor Greene became president as a Republican, I would jump off the bridge. So there's that.
No, it is a bizarro world that we live in that Marjorie Taylor Greene is no longer the worst Republican.
Yeah, I was gonna say they've done this terrible thing to me where now I have to hand it to Marjorie Taylor Greene far too
Marjorie
often.
Taylor Greene is still, I promise everyone, top 10 worst Republicans.
Yes.
The one thing she can do, the one thing she's done, and something I tell candidates to do not run the race that's happening today. You run the race that's happening in November of that even year. She's running a race for the even year, November. Because you understand, no one can be primaried after December 15th. That's the FEC filing deadline for federal races. You're going to see you're already seeing it, but man, you're going to see a whole lot of Republicans that don't have a primary opponent jump ship after the 15th of December. Watch.
Why'd
and
you
then
jump
they'll
so
really
early?
jump ship once their primary's out of the way. And then because at that point, so your primary is in August, correct?
Yes.
I'm about to do your state. I'm in August right now on the calendar. In fact, my today should be Kansas. Kansas will be today, and they're at the beginning of August. So by the time by August, so really you're going to see a ton of them jump ship between May and June, because about 24 of the 50 states have their primaries by mid-May to mid-June. That weird 4-week period is insane. It's almost every week there's about 6 or 7 races happening, or primaries happening, when you look at the calendar. And the reason they do that is because people are dealing with school being closing down, so parents are busy. No one's paying attention to a primary, and then everyone goes on vacation. There's a reason that the parties pick that time, because they want to control the primary.
Yep.
So, but what's interesting about that is you're going to see a whole lot of Republicans all of a sudden find a spine, because they're worst, especially with the gerrymandering. It's actually the gerrymandering makes it even more predictable, because they're not even worried about losing into a Democrat, because they're in a strong R. They're in an R plus 12. The only way those get swung is during special elections, like that state Senate up in Pennsylvania, that R plus 23 that went D plus 6. That shit doesn't happen. Not in a scheduled primary and or general election. So you're going to see a whole bunch of Republicans, because really by August of next year, you're going to have Trump will be effectively a lame duck president.
If he's
There's no way he holds on to Congress. Not even trying, I found 12 seats that are going to flip. I think he might even lose the Senate, which I didn't think was possible. But there's math for that now, which is nuts. So, yeah, I mean, anyway, I feel like that's kind of where, so Marjorie Taylor Greene is seeing where she's going to be in November of 2026, not where she is right now. In my opinion.
It makes a lot of sense.
It kind of makes sense, but it also kind of doesn't. Why would she flip so early? She could have just not said a damn thing for the next month, and then she can.
Well, the reason, for one thing, she's a woman scorned. She wanted to run for Senate, and they wouldn't let her in Georgia.
Yeah.
That, and honestly, that was the tipping point. She was always going to run this way, but when they basically cut her legs out from under her, and she's getting hard primaried from the right now, and she was always going to be primaried from the right. That's what's happening. So her out was the U.S. Senate seat, and they cut that out from under her. Now she has to do something different.
And what do you think, just as a follow-up on the Senate thing, real quick, sorry, Dane.
Okay.
Because I'm curious about this one. As far as the 2026 Senate map goes, where do you see like the most like spicy, like what's your spiciest flip you see?
Maine's a big one. And the Democrats have worked really hard to screw it up. But I don't know even if we can screw this up. Because now,
never underestimate the Democrats.
I know. We have magical powers that go beyond even our understanding. But I feel like Maine is an easy one to pick, and because I'm sure she's very concerned, and she's always very concerned. And then she votes to throw women's health care under the bus.
Never concerned enough to actually do anything, but she's very concerned.
Very concerned. And I also think that we've got a lot of man, I'll tell you, there is a scenario in Texas where there's a Democrat who wins U.S. Senate seat.
I believe that.
And we can get into that if you want, but or we can save it for another time. But we can't win if the incumbent wins the primary.
Yeah.
John Cornyn's not going anywhere.
No.
Also, the other problem is Texas is the most expensive state to run a statewide race in. You will have headquarters that are more than 1,000 miles apart in this state, because you're gonna have if you have one in El Paso and you have one in Dallas, that's effectively a third of the United States. So if you drive from Texarkana to El Paso, you've driven across a third of the U.S.
That's so
Dallas
crazy.
is only about 2.5 hours from Texarkana. It's a 12-hour drive to El Paso.
Yeah, in the rare situations where I've driven through Texas the long way, it was agonizing. I thought I was going to die there. I was like, I'm never leaving Texas.
For a Texan in the Northeast, it's like science fiction. I by accidentally went into another state once. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I was in Boston. I was in Massachusetts, and I missed my exit, and I was in New York. I was like, how
Where
the
the
fuck
fuck am I?
Yeah, I drove through Texas the long way once. I get to Texarkana early in the morning. I'm like, oh sweet, I'll be there in time for an early supper, and then it's fucking dark as hell.
No,
but
you
we
get
keep
on
getting
30,
day off.
then you get on 20, and you keep on driving.
Well,
yeah,
Tennessee is so long and thin. So like you're constantly like 2.5 hours away. Like when I lived in Chattanooga, I was always 2.5 hours away from like Atlanta, from North Carolina, parts of Kentucky, Virginia, all that jazz. So
yeah, Texans measure distance and time, not miles.
Yes. So kind of going back to the question Emma had asked. I don't know how much, I mean, seems like you're aware of all the candidates, but have you seen the governor race at all for Wisconsin yet, at least on the Democratic?
I was wanting to get there at some point.
A little bit. I'll be honest. I haven't quite gotten to the governors yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I'm still stuck in Congress, to be honest. I mean, so like for example, there's I think Congressional District 7 in Illinois had like 24 candidates running for it.
Wow.
So for me to research that one freaking race,
Right.
I had to look up 24 different FEC reports and compile them and put it. I mean, so
yeah.
I mean, for example, in New York, just in the congressional districts that I looked at, and I didn't even look at all of them because some of them are super red and I'm not dealing with that. 74 candidates I had to look up. So I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But I have not had a true chance to just sit down and look at the governor's race yet. And I do plan to do that, but it's on my list. But I just got to get through Congress first. And then then the Senate will take me like a day and a half. And then I'll get to the governor races. But that's where I'm at right now. I'd be happy to come back when I've got that on lock. When we can talk about that more, that'd be great.
For
and
sure.
Also the Senate, I also need to go take a harder look at. But yeah, it's because we got some really interesting stuff going down here in Texas. Like Jasmine Crockett might run. We'll find out in about 10 days if that's going to happen. And then you've got Telecredo, who's really interesting and kind of a throwback Democrat in Texas. He can speak the religious language, and it's important.
Yeah.
In Texas to be able to do that, because mostly the evangelical right nationalist Christians that make up the Republican Party here in Texas are far from Christian, in my opinion.
Yeah.
As a Christian.
Yeah, I mean, it will be really interesting because we actually had one of the candidates on 2 episodes ago, and we're all in support of her. She's running as a Democratic Socialist, which will be interesting in Wisconsin, but very grassroots, kind of akin to like what we saw with Katie Wilson in Seattle and that type of thing. So would definitely be curious to have you on once you kind of looked at those, because that's something that we're all, it's one of those things where we're like, oh, this might be our chance, but it's, you know, it's not going to be easy. But.
Yeah, people were like, you should be like better journalists and be more like non-partial on that whole thing. And I was like, nah, fuck that. I'm Team Fran. Let's go. I saw her in Madison Tuesday, and I was just like,
no, and I try to keep a pretty even keel on my show too. But if AOC called me tomorrow, I'm in.
Right.
If she runs for president, I'll be living in a cardboard box just outside her headquarters, working for free.
That would make me feel better about the future. Like Zoran's a huge one, and Fran would also be huge. But nothing would make me feel better about the future than if AOC just absolutely dog walked Schumer.
Oh, and I think that's happening. So I can speak to that race if you're interested.
Yeah.
So I think she is going to run, even though she's still got to run her race, and she's smart to be keeping saying that. And that's exactly what she should be saying. But also she's sitting on $12 million right now, which is the most of anyone in any war chest of any congressperson that I've seen and I'm 2/3 of the way through every state.
Yeah.
And she's not, and the next one is like 6 million. So it's not even like she's close. And that's not true, because Jasmine's got, I think, 5. So I mean, most congressional representatives have between 800,000 and about 1.2 million as of September in their war chest.
Wow.
Yeah. You have a few Republicans are in the 3s and the 4s, but as far as money goes, sitting in war chests for Democrats have all the Republicans beat. That's why I don't understand. Everyone's like, oh, the Republicans are out raising blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, not according to FEC as of September. That's an interesting talking point that you have there, sir. But I think somebody said that, and then they all started saying that.
Well, we're also finally in that like point where like it's kind of fine that we have Citizens United still, because money isn't winning elections as much anymore. Like Elon is a good example of that, where he pumped all that money, like more than ironically more than George Soros, the next like 5 Democratic donors combined. And they were still trying to pull the false equivalency of like, no, it's just like George Soros. And it's like, really? He's done a fraction of what Elon's done, but not to crash out about that. Sorry.
James,
what I was bringing it up with was just that, he still lost despite spending a ridiculous amount of money on that. But
yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird because, like, first, you don't sit on $12 million in a safe seat unless you're planning some shit.
Exactly.
We need to get Elon Musk over there, because I think
he's our new face in the hole.
No, I'm serious, because like Americans, we've got this weird kind of oppositional defiant disorder, like as an entire culture, right? Like we are perfectly fine with like getting advertisements, getting manipulated all the time, but the moment you make it obvious, we get really pissed off about it.
Yep.
I think she's going to run for Senate. I mean, and that's where she was at in September. She's been raising money. I wouldn't be at all surprised if by the time November rolls around of next year, she's in the 20 to 25 million level, and then Schumer's done.
Yeah,
I've got to go in a couple minutes because I have to yeet off to class. I've got one more vibe theory to hit you with. Okay.
The pink ones that do the thumbs. Sorry, never mind. Go ahead.
If the media, like, just your general traditional media outlets, not counting Fox News, of course, because they've never really been media. But if the traditional media stuck to just saying true things about Donald Trump in context, he would have never even won the first election. I think they tried too hard to make people scared of him, and it backfired.
I think they said it so much that no one was even listening anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a weird case of who cried wolf, because I think that it was just said so often and the stuff in Project 2025, which is how I launched my channel at CLSBPolitics.com. I didn't even plug it. It's actually CLSB Politics on YouTube. You can find me. I'm very easy to find. That I think that no one believed it could be done. I was a policy analyst when I first started doing this work. I read Project 2025 and it made me create my YouTube channel because it was the scariest 937 pages I've read in a long, long time. And I think because it was so awful and so incredibly unrealistic, like, how could you possibly get rid of all the aid that we give out to the world? How could you starve millions of people in Africa and get away with that? How could you weaponize the Department of Justice and get away with that? That's impossible. Right. Impossible. And that's because, people with rational thought listened to what they said and said, that's not a thing. And now here we are in the middle of exactly that thing. I think that's what happened. Mm-hmm. So yes, to answer your question, I think yes. But also, I think they just, you hear something over and over and over again. And anyone who's raised children has to make sure that they hear when their kids call or yell out, because they do it all the damn time, that you're still listening.
Right.
And you love your children. So you don't love MSNBC. Why are you going to listen to them?
Yeah.
You get burnout. You just create shields. And you don't hear, because if you heard it all the time, you go insane. And to protect yourself, you create barriers. You unplug, all that jazz. When in reality, the minute you're unplugging is when you should be paying most attention. And I think that's what happened. Also, you can't win a race when you come in halfway through.
That true. That too. So yeah, this I think all of us kind of gotta all three of us at least gotta kind of head out. But this has been phenomenal. Would absolutely love to have you on at least a few more times once we start getting closer to primary season. And
let me finish Wisconsin, and I'm happy to come
Yes.
back and run you guys through some of my thinking on just Wisconsin.
Would love that.
I gotta go right now, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
One thing quick before you leave is we always like to end with like a call to action plug, so to speak. So if you have any of that would be phenomenal.
When you're thinking about donating to a political campaign, especially something local, my advice is that you go and knock on doors for that campaign, because every time you knock on a door is like a $2.35 donation to that campaign. Mm-hmm. And it's not anything that FEC will ever see. You can, you're only allowed to give $2,800 to a congressional race. But if you knocked on 3,000 doors for a congressional race, you'd be giving them $6,000.
Interesting.
So if you want a call to action that kind of like breaks the system, volunteer, knock on doors. It's the most expensive thing that you can do as an individual. And if you stay in your own neighborhood and say, hello, I am your neighbor, and you take ownership of your precinct like that and knock it 3 or 4 times in a cycle, it's a huge, like, for example, there's a JP4 campaign in Collin County that is a student. He's the youngest candidate running in Texas. He's 18. And he goes to UTD, and he can use his public service hours for voter education for all the students. And every student there needs 100 hours of public service. So just his graduating class alone in his business college is 150 students that need 100 hours of public service. That's basically almost $500,000 field program.
Wow.
And it's all,
that's interesting. That's really, I never thought about that, but that's really good.
I literally, my math when I'm doing field programs is how much is each door cost, like real cost, like door hanger, labor, my administrative costs, the database, all the work that came before that, the graphic artists who put the door hanger together, all of it, you can break that down to $1 amount per door. And so that's how I run the math. And Emma will tell you, I run it to where I know to the second how long a canvasser's taken to go from door to door, to the second.
Wow.
Yeah, it scared the shit out of me when you texted me and were like, "Hey, yeah, your stats were perfect," and I was like, "Oh shit, I've been caught doing nothing because I didn't feed anything." But also, this makes me, because especially since like the Milwaukee people were on my ass the entire fucking time about like, your numbers are better than ours. What are you guys doing? And it's like, I don't know. I like doing this. I like.
My favorite was when the political director of Wisconsin's SEIU came up to canvas and went out with Mad Brad, and they had 38% contact rate. By the way, the normal is 12.
Yeah.
And he came back. He's like, no, whatever you guys are doing, just keep doing it. Yep, I believe all your numbers.
Yeah,
And
it was so vindicating. It was
then
like,
yeah, he was like, nope, these are absolutely legit, 100%. I mean, I was like, Bradley, we're not even giving you a special piece of turf. Just go out, use where you're at, take them out, and go do it. And because we had opened up that bottom 30%, our density was better, and people were not accustomed to people knocking on their doors to ask them to vote, because it's the bottom 30% that nobody ever asks to vote.
Right.
yeah, the actual
So they'll
hostiles
answer.
that I got were so low.
Interesting.
Yeah.
People would just be like, no thanks, or just not answer at all if they didn't want it. But like the actual people that were hostile were way lower, because they were just like, oh hell.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really eye-opening. Definitely, this is awesome. I'm so happy you joined. I always end, I say, get active, get wise, get organized. Emma's got her own little
Stay trashy goblins and fuck Ronald Reagan.
You fit it in. She fits it in every episode.
Worst thing ever happened to our generation was in 1981.
Yes,
God bless it. Yes,
for sure.